Testosterone and estrogen are sex hormones for both males and females. So they play a major number of different roles, but predominantly for fertility. Really important as well, particularly testosterone from a muscle mass point of view and a bone density, and estrogen particularly from a bone density point of view, that there's enough sort of circulating in the body, but also has a lot to do with hair growth, sex drive, general sort of moods and things like that as well. So there's a number of different roles it'll play with the health. But can absolutely have a huge impact in performance in sport as well.
So what sort of performance decreases or increases can you get from having a low or high testosterone?
So both low levels and higher levels can be potentially dangerous as well. So generally in sport and cycling, we often see low levels of estrogen or low levels of testosterone in athletes who have potentially been overtraining or under eating, or a combination of both. Low testosterone or low estrogen typically will make it harder to gain lean muscle, but will have a major role in bone cell turnover as well. So really important that there is enough estrogen, enough testosterone in the body, because if there isn't, then bone mineral density is typically going to be lower, which will obviously have an impact on the risk of stress fractures. So during training, but also if you're coming off the bike, obviously that's not it's a common thing to happen, but unfortunately it's going to be much easier to break a bone if you've got low levels of either hormone.
So your diet has a pretty big role to play in your testosterone levels.
Absolutely. So if you're not getting enough food in, that will typically result in low testosterone. So some of the symptoms that may show up is, not able to build muscle, if you're constantly fatigued, low sex drive, a number of different things that are going to occur in the body. But the best way to be checking is checking in with a blood test. Through your general practitioner or sports physician. And same with estrogen, so low sex drive, potentially not having a menstrual cycle or early menopause for some women. If you're constantly getting injured, if you're constantly fatigued, those are some of the signs and symptoms of low estrogen and testosterone, but definitely can have an effect on training performance as well. So if you're not eating enough food, and you're training too much. Unfortunately, there's I often get asked what sort of foods will boost estrogen and testosterone, and there's no particular one food that is going to support that. The most important factor is to be eating enough food in general, and a good quality diet. So, some of the foods that can support increasing hormones can be things like dark leafy greens, and good quality fats, so nuts and seeds, oily fish, avocado, things like that. But it's important to note that there's no one particular food that's a testosterone booster or estrogen booster. It's just general healthy diet and actually eating enough food for the training load.
You touched on that before, that the low testosterone and low estrogen, you have a lower sex drive. So you'd say that the warning signs before you should get a blood test, and that's something you should check on? Yeah,
absolutely. And, even for, males, particularly if they're struggling to get an erection, is a really easy one. That's a common symptom that males will need to look out for, but definitely low sex drive. And then, if you're not able to build muscle very easily, sometimes that can be as a result of having low estrogen or testosterone as well.
So would you say this is a common thing to happen when trying to lose weight?
Absolutely. So it's something that often a lot of athletes don't think about as well, is they think, the quicker I can lose weight, the better. And they're looking at that from potential performance enhancement. However, if they're in a significant deficit really quickly or for a really long period of time, then both of these hormones can suffer for both males and females. So obviously females will have more estrogen and only a very small amount of testosterone. So it's estrogen that's typically affected more so. And then males obviously having testosterone. So it's important to check out for those signs and symptoms. But also, as I said, getting a blood test through your doctor is a very easy way to check on your levels.
And there's been a fair bit of talk about soy products. They just decrease your testosterone and estrogen levels.
Not necessarily, no. So there's many benefits to eating soy products, and particularly, is it great to increase your vegetarian-based products throughout your diet as well. But I wouldn't say that it's important to only eat soy products or only eat meat-based products as well. I think having that balance is really important. And typically for soy products to have an effect on estrogen and testosterone, you have to eat really, really, really large amounts, which is typically not the case for, majority of the population who are eating, potentially some tofu or some soy milk and things like that as well. So it's not often a problem that people have to be concerned about if they're having, something on a regular basis. It's actually lots of health benefits to soy products. There is conflicting evidence and advice out there. However, the latest research is that you've got to be eating significant portions of soy products. So we're talking sort of hundreds and hundreds of grams of tofu, or potentially cups of soy, like many cups of soy milk over the day, and every single day. And for majority of the population, that's just not the case, even if they are eating a vegetarian-based diet.
Would you say it's okay to dip into the low testosterone levels for like key events?
Ideally, no, because all that's going to do is reduce your strength and your power. So it is actually going to have a negative performance effect as well. So even if you're trying to drop weight, we're trying to do that in a way that we're not affecting hormone levels at the same time, because as soon as hormone levels are reduced, your performance is straight away reduced as well. So it's not, you don't want to compromise that to try to get to a certain weight. It's not going to provide any performance benefit whatsoever.
Yeah, because I've definitely been around athletes who, they're just like cracked all the time with low energy, but they're just doing that to get as lean as possible, as quick as possible. So yeah. And
I think that's something that I'm trying to get a lot of my athletes to understand is, yes, weight and power to weight ratio is obviously important on the bike, but there are so many other things that are just as important, if not more important. Obviously, having energy is a big one. So if you're rocking up to a race and you're consistently fatigued in the lead up to that race and you're unable to train properly, if you're fatigued coming into a race, it doesn't matter how light and lean you are, you're not going to be able to perform at your best anyway. So it's important to sort of change the mindset around that of there's other factors to be looking out for. So, that may come at the cost of 1 or 2 kilos heavier than what you thought was ideal. But I think the ideal weight needs to also take into consideration that we want to look at your power, we want to look at your strength, we want to look at your endurance, and all of these things are going to be affected if you have low testosterone or low estrogen, plus all the health sort of impacts that may be happening as well.
Is there any mental effects with the low testosterone?
Absolutely. So particularly from a mood, so mood changes are a big one, a big symptom to look out for, but definitely from a cognitive function point of view, it can affect your concentration levels. So you might just not be as switched on if your hormone levels are lower.
So then work, everything outside of your training will take a hit as well.
Absolutely. So it's not just your training, it's going to be potentially, sleep disturbances, which is going to impact on your recovery, mood changes, so that potentially is going to affect your work or home life and relationships. So, as I said, sex drive is a big one as well, and just general sort of long-term health as well. So if you're hoping to have a child at any point, your fertility may be impacted, which, is really important to understand from a really young age, because often we'll get young athletes who aren't thinking about that in their life, but it's important to note that, particularly for females, having a regular menstrual cycle is a really important part of not only their health but also their performance. And so often I hear people say, I don't have a regular menstrual cycle because I'm training a lot. It shouldn't matter how much you're training and how much you're racing. You should always, as a female, have a regular menstrual cycle, because that's what the body is meant to be doing. And if it's not regular, then needing to check in with a GP or a sports physician and have some sort of investigation as to why that's happening. And a lot of the time it's because there's not enough food or not enough energy coming in to support the training load. So the body will typically start to shut down sort of major body functions, and generally the first thing to be affected will be the menstrual cycle. And so then that straight away can affect, as I said, a number of different things, but particularly bone density, lean mass and muscle mass, I should say. But generally, performance is going to be affected very, very quickly.
Yeah, that's why you see a lot of the top level cyclists, as soon as they fall off, they just break bones.
Yeah, well, bones become brittle quite easily if there's not enough estrogen or testosterone in the body. So it's not something that you can, pick up straight away as well. So, I'm not saying that you can't be in an energy deficit to lose weight, but you just needing to monitor how much of an energy deficit you're going into, and then how long, how long you're actually going to be in that deficit for. So, working with a professional and doing it to keep all these other things in mind is going to look after not only your health, but definitely your performance as well.
If your testosterone or estrogen has been low for a long time, does that significantly have long-term impacts, like you said, fertility is like one of them, but even for males, if you stay too long, can you like fully recover from that?
Look, it depends how long you've had low testosterone or low estrogen levels for. If you can get your diet back to where it should be and have enough food coming in, enough energy coming in, then typically you can get estrogen levels and testosterone levels back to their normal quite quickly. However, it depends how long they've been low for the long-term effects that they may have. So bone density, for example, is, just if testosterone levels or estrogen levels come back to normal, bone density doesn't just, improve overnight. That takes a number of other different factors to improve bone density. So, that could be potentially affected for the rest of your life. Fertility may be affected as a result of that. So how quickly that recovers, is how long is a piece of string. There's no sort of a correct answer of how long that may happen, but you can correct your hormone levels quite quickly. It's just the effects of having low testosterone and low estrogen levels may be more chronic after those levels have returned.
As athletes get older, especially our masters athletes, is there more of a concern with having decreased testosterone, or is it just when you're younger?
As you get older, and particularly for females post-menopause, estrogen levels significantly decline, and that's a normal process, and that's typically where hormone replacement therapy becomes an option for females post-menopause. However, males as well, typically testosterone levels decline with age. So that's a normal process. So it's also important that they then don't also put them in a significant deficit for a very long period of time in order to lose weight, because that's going to affect their levels even further. And again, potentially have an effect on, all of those performance factors. So strength, bone density in particular, endurance, cognitive function and concentration, but then also, at that stage of their life, they're not worried about fertility, and that's usually not an option in their life. But however, sex drive and there's still going to be normal parts of their life that are going to be affected based on having low levels. So yes, from a bone density and a broken bones point of view, if they're coming off the bike, it can be an issue, but it can still affect other areas of their life.